Hi, everyone, and hi, Tim. Welcome to the second part of our conversation on the magic and medicine of feeling. Today, we want to dive deeper into developing sensitivity as a topic that has really come out very strongly for both of us since our most recent conversation. And we spent quite a bit of time on the what, the definition of feeling last time, and also a little bit about, we talked a little bit about the why it's important for us to develop the sensitivity or the ability and the capacity to feel, to be present with what's happening inside of us, and to really be connected to the sensations in our bodies, and also what to do with emotions, our emotional experience, and the entire experience of life. And so today we did feel inspired to go a little bit more into the why again, and then also the how. How can we develop sensitivity? How can we develop this capacity to be more connected to what's happening inside of us? And maybe we will share some tools and whatever has worked for us on this journey, and also what's relevant right now, I would assume.
Yes.
And yeah, to really see how we can develop this sense of feeling. And I have to apologize, my cat is extremely vocal this morning. So if you hear some meowing in the background, that's why, but I hope she will calm down in a moment. So I wanted to give you a little bit of space for a start, Tim, to share your thoughts on the why it is important for us to develop this ability to feel and to be connected with what's happening inside of us, inside our bodies, and in our entire experience. So
Okay.
whatever you feel like sharing, please go ahead.
Yes. Oh my. There's so much to discuss. And thank you, by the way, for that beautiful introduction. For those of you who are with us, and for those of you who haven't heard the first part of this, we did spend a bit of time discussing the terminologies, because on the subject of feeling, there's all these different ways in which we utilize the word itself. And so we drew a strong distinction between the sense of feeling, this ability to feel at all, and what we often refer to as feelings, which is typically referring to mood or emotion, the feelings that arise within us. And so we utilize the word interchangeably, and to the best of our ability moving forward in this conversation, we want to make a careful point of contextualizing the word as we're moving forward with it. And I see that our friend has just joined us.
Yep,
There she
here
is.
she is.
That's great. Okay. Hopefully she'll be happier in your arms.
Well, she might be for a moment, but then she'll want to start moving and probably playing with my headphones and stuff. But
Oh, yeah. Okay. That'll be fun. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Uh, so I'd like to look for a moment at the sense of feeling. I said probably many times over in our previous conversation how important I have found this to be. In fact, I believe that I said that I consider it to be the critical point of human experience, that something about this capacity to feel is central to our experience in every case, regardless of human design type, regardless of personality type. Feeling is central to all of us, and it's something that is simultaneously sensory on the same level as eyesight and smell and taste, and extrasensory in that it incorporates and transcends all of these. There's something very fundamental about what we're dealing with here. So the question that we're excited to look at today, the first of two, is why. Why does this really matter? And I've touched on it just now by saying how central it is to experience, but I want to expand on this a bit. What I've been considering is the way that sensitivity connects to feeling. And so we spoke a bit last time, and Anna mentioned it again, about the development of sensitivity. And by developing sensitivity, we gain or regain this access to feeling. The more sensitive we can become, the more we can feel. The more we can feel, the more we can experience. the more of life we're allowing ourselves to take in. Okay, so we get this, but there's something else that I've been contemplating. There's something about developing a sensitivity to feeling that allows us to begin to draw a sensory distinction between signals. And in this case, I want to become very simple. I want to become almost childlike in explaining this, okay? And I see you smiling, Anna, because you and I both operate on this level. We always want to speak in the clearest possible terms to the everyman, to literally anyone who might be listening, even a child, right? So in this case, we want to develop sensitivity so that we can feel the difference between a yes and a no, between a green light go, that flow of self-generating momentum, and the stop sign, red light, halt, feeling of stuckness. Okay, this is the binary signaling system that we're developing a sensitivity in order to identify. This is what's been so exciting for me recently, because when we do this, we regain that deeper connection to our inner authority, to our inner guidance system, which you spoke quite a bit about during our last conversation. And I think the reason that I've been so focused on this since we last spoke is because I've been living it. It's like, okay, there are nuances and subtleties to sensitivity. You know, we experience feeling on a gradient, and sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's so expansive we feel paralyzed by it in good or uncomfortable directions. But ultimately, we're dealing with a system of consciousness that is split in half. And the higher frequencies are positive. We could call them positive. Think of a plus sign. They're self-generative. And on the other end, you can think of the minus sign. They're negative. They're depletive energy. And so you can imagine this middle ground, which is neutral, and above that you have something that grows, and below that you have something that depletes. And you can feel the difference. You can feel the difference between a thought that is depletive and a thought that is generative. You can feel the difference between an experience that is drawing you forward into more and an experience that is causing you to contract or tense. This is why we develop a sensitivity to feelings, so that we can navigate our experience in a way that realigns us with what is natural and elegant and easy and fluid and expansive, so that we can thrive, and so that we can begin to recognize all the different ways in which we've compromised that natural way of being by moving in directions that constrict and tighten and tense and stick us into corners that we don't want to be in. And we can begin to develop an awareness for how we've done those things. And what's so amazing is that we are remarkably capable bioorganisms. The body, take the mind out of it entirely. The body always knows if something is efficient or not. And if there's something inefficient, nature does this, by the way. You look at a natural system like a forest, inefficiencies are weeded out because there's no reason for it. At our most natural, we grow, we evolve, we expand. There's that natural fluid movement. So that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with the ability to move forward and upward and to grow by design, by intention, and to feel for the difference. And when we can see where we're not doing that, something inside says, oh, why in the world would I do that? You know, it's inefficient. It's unhelpful. It hurts. And so over time, that way of being that is not helpful, that is not supportive, sees its own way out, because the body always does what's most efficient if we allow it to, if we get out of the way. So I'm going to pause there for a minute because I've seen you smiling and nodding, and I want to just check in and see if there's anything you'd like to add. I know you've lived this as I have, so what's coming up for you?
So everything that you just said, definitely, I would say, is also what I would consider to be the primary functions of feeling. The ability to really experience life fully, I think that's been a really important one for me. And also really developing this ability to feel what is right for me in every single moment, and really trusting my inner guidance in this way. A couple other aspects that I've been exploring as well, and I think one that's been really important for me as well, especially in the last several years, I've really been exploring this and shifting through this, and that would be feeling as a healing tool also, and like the process of emotional healing, I would say, and like for me, working with what's coming up for me emotionally, knowing how to deal with what's coming up for me emotionally in a healthy way so that it supports my healing process rather than blocking it, or just kind of staying stuck in those cycles and loops that just keep repeating themselves and recreating trauma. So that has been a really important part of my experience, and something that I go through every single day. So maybe we can go into this a little bit more as well later on in this conversation. The other thing also, because I speak a lot about manifestation, that's kind of one of the things that I'm really passionate about. And so I would say, and that's definitely connected to the inner authority, and really trusting and following our own inner guidance. But there's more than that as well, like really developing the ability to, I guess, not just receive, but also cultivate certain states of feeling. I think we can do that as well, to, but not in a way that is forced. So I think it's just this interaction between us and what's happening in our physical reality, which is of course always a mirror of what's happening inside of us, whether it's directly manifesting physically or through projection. That's another one that I mean, that's a big one for me, for sure. But there's a lot around that as well, I would say, like really knowing how to work with this sense of feeling and cultivating certain states of feeling and energy. I would say that's ultimately what it is, to manifest our desires into reality, but also in a way that really serves us on the highest level, not so much from an ego perspective, because then we stay stuck in our subconscious patterns and our programming. So I think these are the two main points that I wanted to add here. And there might be one more on the list that I have from last time. Let me just check. I'm kind of curious to see if there's anything else. Okay. There's something that you mentioned, Tim, in our pre-conversation before last time we talked, feeling and motivation, like what drives us to take action.
That's right. That's it.
So would you want to expand on this at all right now?
Yes, I would love to. I would love to expand on everything you just mentioned, by the way. Briefly, the first example that you shared stepped away from the sense of feeling and this feeling forward to look at what we feel. When you talked about this flow of emotions and our relationship to those emotions. So that is it's like, again, we're moving from one context to another in terms of how we're using the word, but that context is vital. It's extremely human. So we need to look at that. And we did a little bit last time we spoke as well, but it's just an area that has so much life in it. So that's one thing. And then, of course, that piece about manifestation, huge. I mean, we could dedicate a conversation to that alone. The way that so much of what we hear about manifestation and how to manifest, and these things are rooted often in a positive mindset and thinking. But ultimately, manifestation as a mechanism, how it works, is always a function of feeling. The thoughts, and the reason that manifestation, as many learn it, doesn't work, because they're trying to superimpose thoughts over underlying feelings which are not aligned. And so you have this attempt at like good thinking and big thinking under basically supported by feelings which are insecure and very confident of lack, and so there's a lot to look at there, but feeling is the answer for this as well. And again, developing a sensitivity for the underlying feeling is something that many of us have not learned to do. We're often stuck up here on the conceptual surface, and that's kind of how we've been trained. But when you can tap into that deeper, uh, essence, which is always a feeling essence, then you begin to learn what's really happening. And once you see the feeling, if it's not aligned, you have the ability at that point to see it clearly and to relinquish the feeling, which is not something that you even know to do if you don't know it's there, right? So there's a lot there in what you just described. But the one that I will be most excited about starting with is that last piece, motivation. What is it that moves us to act in any given moment? This connects to the yes no signals that I was just talking about. This is why I believe it to be so fundamental. It's connected to every single decision, every single step we take in life. It's pivotal to experience across the board. It's not the sort of thing that you do sometimes and not other times. In every case, you're taking action for some reason. The question of why is important, and it's not one that we often pay attention to. For instance, I often like to use Facebook posts as an example, right? I can create a Facebook post for any number of reasons, right? I can create a Facebook post this morning because last night I agreed with myself that it's been too long since I've posted, and so I need to write a Facebook post, or else maybe I won't be recognized, or all these different reasons, right? I could write a Facebook post because I woke up this morning and was purely inspired to do so. I could write a Facebook post in hopes of generating sales or attention. I could write a Facebook post for literally no reason other than that I happen to find myself on my phone and insight strikes, right? There are all these different reasons. Some of those reasons arise naturally from that pure space of innocence inside. They do not carry an agenda. In fact, what they carry is this natural momentum of life that we're referring to. There's that green light go. It's pure, it's innocent. Like these words have become really important to me as I've connected to that essence, because it is always pure. There is no agenda. It's always innocent. It's just a wellspring of life, right? The sharing is not for any reason except for the pure joy of doing so. And then there are all these other reasons, all the reasons, very mental. In every case, they're mental. That's the other thing. When that purity moves, it moves from your gut. It moves from the inside out. It's like these conversations. We don't plan them. We don't outline them. We don't script them. We meet, and then what happens, happens. And it's just this authentic moment of sharing and expression, But there could be another way of going about this. And I can tell you that I've certainly done it that other way of planning and preparing and presenting, right? So when we look at the underlying motivation, we begin to get a sense for the differences between what I like to call red and green. Red is something that is going to be unsustainable ultimately. It's something that carries with it a lot of mental energy and requires a lot of effort. Whereas green is something that is natural, it's unavoidable, it just happens, and yet in every case it carries with it the energy of the universe, and it's a position of empowerment. It contains power, and it's effortless, as opposed to that red side, which is a function of force and requires effort, and always eventually depletes whatever energy you may have to plug into it. So why do we do what we do? So important. And there are so many examples that we could use. In fact, I'm curious to know if anything's coming up for you to share on that subject while I've been speaking.
Absolutely. And the example that you just shared about the Facebook post, I mean, that's a really good one. And I can tell you, planning posts, any strategizing does not work for me anymore. And it has actually never really worked for me. I think even when I started my first business back in 2009, like I was just in this state where I was just trusting the flow. And of course, I've learned to do that a lot more since then. But especially in recent years, it's all been a matter of like really being in the present moment so much and just trusting what comes through in
Yes.
this moment. I share when I feel inspired to share, and usually it's just because something brings me joy. I'm really excited about something and I naturally want to share, and that's when I share.
Yes.
And that's pretty much all I do in my business for advertising marketing. I mean, I haven't really even advertised much at all this year because I haven't really needed to, but um, it just goes to show that it really works. And as you said, it's so much more efficient. And I can just trust that whatever needs to be said, whatever needs to be shared, will be shared in the perfect moment. And I really see the difference. So it's rare nowadays that I post something just because I feel I need to. It hardly ever happens anymore. But when I do, I know that it's not going to resonate with people in the same way as if I share something that, is really inspired. And of course, that's not even why I share. I'm not really sharing because I want a specific number of likes or because when I do that,
Right.
of course, then that's exactly what's going to happen. Then
Yes.
it's not going to work. I just really share for the joy of sharing. And here we have that motivational aspect.
Yes.
So it is so much more efficient, and it is really a matter of being in the present moment so much and enjoying the journey, not needing to plan anything ahead. And um, this is also something that I was contemplating last night when I was preparing the notes that I shared with you last night for this conversation. Um, but I mean, in a lot of ways, this is the entire goal for me, at least, of this entire work that we're doing. Um,
Yes.
Not needing to know, what will happen in an hour or tomorrow or even next year.
Right.
And, just fully embracing the journey of life. And in order to be able to do that, we need to be able to trust what flows naturally in this moment.
Yes.
But it's definitely taken a long time to get to this place where I can do that without then aimlessly floating through life and just being really distracted by everything, and still having that focus that is also necessary, to do this efficiently.
It's a refocusing.
Mm.
We were so focused on our strategies and on the trajectory, and we were
Mm.
trained to focus on the return on our investment, and all of these different things, right? What you're doing now is you're refocusing to that question of alignment. Here's what it is. It's not just more efficient, it's honest and it's sustainable. It's connecting to the authentic voice inside, to the authentic impulse. That's what it is. So this, I think, is a really relevant topic for most of our listeners. They're probably a lot like us in that
Mm.
they offer services or support professionally, and they face a lot of these same dragons that we have had to. And I can tell you and our listeners that my professional history was very focused in all of this, in marketing, advertising, digital advertising, social media marketing.
Mm.
It was what I did, and I helped
Mm.
businesses, small businesses, ideally, to develop in these ways. And so I knew how to build a strategy, multiple strategies. It didn't matter if we were talking about social media marketing or search engine optimization. This is what I did, and I was damn good at it too. Except, except there's so much effort that goes into these things, and what tends to happen for most business owners is that they become deeply overwhelmed by it. So even if they get it, which many of us just never quite understand really what's happening there. Search engine optimization is not going to be the sort of thing that everyone gets excited about. So you
I
have a
do.
lot of, I know we do,
I love it.
but the thing is, like, you have small business owners basically relinquishing their power, the responsibility that they could be taking for themselves to a company to cover this for them, and paying monthly fees to have marketing and to have search engine optimization. What we're describing here is something that somehow subverts all of that and yet contains it. Because ultimately, if we can learn how to tap this authentic space inside, then we give that space voice, and we trust. And this is the hard part. This is the part that takes a few years to really sort out, and we're still in this. You begin to realize that you can trust the timing of that honesty. You can trust that if you show up authentically from one moment to the next, that you no longer need to worry about strategy. You no longer need to worry about return for investment. You no longer need to worry about trajectory, because somehow that whole story is contained in the, it's like this, you can feel it. I don't know, like what I'm picturing, I can't describe. It's like sizzling with life. It's unavoidable. I can tell you that, it's very uncomfortable for me to go for a month or longer without showing up online. My livelihood depends upon being seen by others, and those people valuing my work enough to purchase a service, these sort of things. It's terrifying to just be silent. It doesn't make business sense. And yet I can tell you that when I trust and I wait and I trust and I feel, and then one day randomly, like a few days ago, the impulse arises to show up, and then I do, for no reason except for that, hey, now there's life here. Now this wants to move. Now this quote wants to be shared, or this video clip wants to be shared. It's like the magnetic quality of that, it is unavoidable. It's as if the whole world were just like this, like just waiting on hold for Tim to post something. And the minute that he did, boom. And I can tell you that all the social media marketing strategies and calendars that I've built and implemented, I've never seen that before, never. And it's easy once you learn that you can trust it. So I think that there's a lot here. I think there's a lot more here than we want to go into in today's conversation. But for those of you who like get this and really can sense into the potential here, the ease that's possible here, oh my goodness. I'll say that I've been consulting with a few close friends in this exact same area over the past month or so in particular. And it is a whole new world. It is a world that one friend refers to as unmarketing. Another group of friends that I've been working with, we've come up with inside out marketing, forgetting entirely about the audience and just allowing what's inside of you to move. There's something here, and it is magnetic. And it is far more powerful than any of the strategies that have ever been taught or sold. And it's a part of what we're developing sensitivity in order to tap, in order to implement in a whole new way. And all it is the force of your own nature coming to life without inhibition. That's it. Just getting out of her own way for a change. I could go on and on for hours. You speak, Anna. I can see. Okay. I can see that you've got more.
Well, of course, I'm really excited about this topic because, we have such a similar background professionally too, and I just can't really get over it. I was in content strategy and copywriting, advertising. That's what I did in corporate. But one thought that I just had, I'm really excited about search engine optimization because I still love doing it. But I was just contemplating how I do it very differently now compared to, all those years ago. And I guess even back then I was doing it more intuitively, but just the difference was that my mind was so involved. Like I was constantly thinking, I need to do so much more. And I spent so much time just thinking about what I should be doing rather than just, being here in this moment and just doing what's in front of me right now and just taking care of that. But there's like a merging that has happened for me between, spontaneous present moment kind of action and also utilizing the strategies that, are just second nature for me. SEO for me is just something I do very naturally and intuitively. And so I guess the difference is I don't really make a plan. I don't really work out a strategy ahead of time, but I know, in the moment, okay, here's a strategy that I can apply now. Like right now in this moment, it feels right for me to write this article, and then I'm just going to work my magic, and I know it's going to work. And
I see her back there. That's hilarious. She's up on the counter making a mess.
Yeah, she just okay, yeah, that was a Christmas present that I wrapped for my neighbor yesterday for my neighbor's dog. Anyway, so what was I gonna say? Okay, I can say that it works because so much of the business that I'm getting these days is from really just a few articles that I wrote last year. Um,
Incredible.
and I didn't even really do any keyword research or anything. Like it was just very spontaneous. Okay, I feel inspired to share this. And then I, use keywords in certain ways just because I know how to do it very intuitively. And like I get so much traffic just from search engines, and like I've been overwhelmed with the amount of inquiries that I've been getting. I've had to kind of
Wow.
just put a pause on new projects this month, just to create a bit of space to like feel forward and kind of see how I can optimize everything in my business to not be so overwhelmed anymore. But anyway, it works. I mean, I did this last year. This is content that keeps bringing me new clients, and I don't have to do a thing today if I don't want to. But that was not planned. That was just spontaneous in the moment. So I guess what I wanted to say is just, yeah, this this merging of like being in the present moment, knowing what to do, like in each moment, very naturally and intuitively. Um, and then the strategy comes in, but it's more like flowing through me. It's not a
That's right.
construct of my mind, if that
That's
makes sense. So it's
that's
more
great.
like it's part of my being because I've done it, I've done it so many times and I can do it very naturally.
Somehow it's almost as though it's not an intention so much as a response. You
Mm,
know, if you wake up in the morning and you say this is the thing I'm going to do because, that's a very different thing from arriving at the moment and feeling inspired to move in a direction. The one is a matter of, um, we'll say intention, but the other is insight. The other is just like it just arises. And SEO is a hilarious, I think, example to be using, because even the way that search engine optimization has developed in the time since we probably both started studying it
mm,
is remarkable, and it speaks to the very thing that we're describing today. Back in the day, and I won't be too technical here, don't worry, but back in the day, it used to be a matter of which words you were using. They were called keywords. And so you'd do a ton of keyword research to see what sort of words and phrases people were searching. And then you would stuff your content with those words in hopes that your content would rise to the first page of Google. This was one of many different ways that you could basically trick the robots to think that your article was of a high value. This was called keyword stuffing. And so this was one of the tricks, right? And you learned that if you wanted to do good SEO, you do this and you'd apply link backs and all these cool different techniques. Well, what's fascinating to me is that over the past decade or so, these algorithms, the AI, the robots, so to speak, on Google have gotten smarter. And you know what they're looking for now? The very thing that we used to win optimization using keywords is actually deprioritized now. If they find an article that's been stuffed like this, they recognize it to be like false. It's like it's too robotic or wooden. They know that it's for SEO, and so it becomes deprioritized to, you guessed it, organic content. That's what these robots have learned to look for. They want to find the authentic voice. They've come to prioritize human expression. That's remarkable. If you're writing
mm,
the way we used to write for optimization, it becomes deprioritized. If you write from that space of originality that brings something fresh and new to life, the internet, these back end robots, so to speak, they see that content and they think, aha, here's something new, that goes to the top. That's an exact representation of what we're talking about here. So yet again, I mean, there are other techniques, that we could easily get into with SEO that still apply. And there's plenty to learn here that anyone can learn, by the way. Little things that are not intimidating, that, like Anna, you can learn and then apply easily without a second thought. But ultimately, this area is one that is driven by original content. It's driven by you speaking whatever is most alive for you in your own voice. That's a really big deal for those of us who care to show up for those of us who are building our own businesses, so to speak, right? It's like crazy. It's a different world. Yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, because feeling is connected to all of it. Look, if you feel like you have to anything, you're off base. That's the long and short of this. If you, like Anna said, for the pure joy of writing an article, just for the joy of it, there's the ticket. Here's the yes, no signal. The yes, no signal is if you're doing something because you want to, because it's pleasurable, because you can't help but, then it's a yes. There it is. And you know that feeling. Unfortunately, most of us have been taught over and over again to deprioritize that feeling to all of the shoulds, to the list of expectations that we carry with us, right? And what we're talking about here through the development of sensitivity and the prioritization of this sense of feeling is basically turning all of that on its head and saying, forget what you've been taught. Even if only for a week or a month, whatever you give yourself to test this out, do it. Forget what you've been taught and instead prioritize those things that are most alive for you. Let them be. I don't care if it's taking a bath or writing a Facebook post. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's alive for you, it has value. It's guiding you somewhere. You don't get to know where that is until you get there. There's the trust. And I if I recall in your notes, Anna, in preparation for all this, you and I were sharing some thoughts, and I'm pretty sure trust was like, at least the way I received it, it felt like it was in all caps, right in the center of everything. Like, oh man, it's all about that trust.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Really? Okay, that's.
It's not in all caps, but I was going to write it that way. It's with an exclamation mark.
Yeah, good. Okay.
But that's how I was visualizing it though when I was writing. So
it's central. It's under, feeling is under everything, and under that is trust. There's some greater reason for existence than whatever our tiny little brains can cook up. Right? I mean, each of us is here for a reason. I know that there will be plenty of people to argue that, but for our purposes, I can tell you that what I've found after all this time is that we are here for a reason, but we don't actually get to know exactly what that reason is. We have to live into it. We somehow have to be surprised by our own stories. And in order to be surprised, we have to let ourselves be. We have to stop working so hard to become the thing, to do it right. To get out of our heads and get down into our feet and let life move through us and let ourselves become surprised by it. And this can only happen as we relax enough to feel our way forward from one moment to the next. Otherwise, we keep running into the same mental walls of overwhelm, the same emotional walls of paralysis, the same relational walls of discord, over and over again. By the way, just a quick plug here, those words I just used are all out of the Body Keys. And the Body Keys is a system that I developed that puts us back in touch with that sense of feeling. So this sneaks into the how a little bit, but let me check in with you first, Anna, and just see okay, do you feel full on the subject of why? And if not, please add anything. And if so, let's look at the how. We've got some time to talk about where to go with all this. And it feels like right here. So what's your sense of this?
Okay, so I would say there is so much more that we could say about the why, and I feel inspired to share more, but also I think we've been talking for 45 minutes already.
Hey, maybe this conversation is the why, and the next one is the how. Follow your feeling. We're not in any rush.
Okay, I guess there's one little thing that is inspiring me to share, the hard work that you mentioned, and that just brought up this thought that when it's something that's so conditioned for most of us, and a societal expectation that we need to work hard to make things happen. And my experience has been, and more after doing all the deconditioning that I've done over so many years, that exactly when I put in too much effort, then that's really a way of creating resistance. And then, well, first of all, we're totally disconnected from our deeper inner truth, because again, that's the motivational aspect, right? Um, we're
Yes.
doing it to prove something to the world, or to
Mhm.
prove that we're worthy, or to, feel worthy ourselves, and
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, prove that we've deserved something before we can receive it. But energetically speaking, hard work or too much effort actually creates resistance, and then of course we get into this experience of needing to do more and needing to do more. But the magic usually happens, or the shift usually happens, once we surrender that need to put in all that effort. I've seen
Yes.
that so many times. And so maybe if we don't pay attention, we'll think, okay, now it's happening because I've put in all this effort and now it's my time to receive. But actually, it's just more of a
That's good.
realization
Yeah.
that, okay, this is not working. I'm letting it go. And that's the moment everything opens up. So I think that was just that one little piece that I wanted to add here.
It's great.
Um, but we,
Really.
we can go into the how, unless you want to add more to this.
Well, actually, one thing, we're just going to play ping pong over here. Um,
Okay.
hard work. All right. Let's talk about hard work for a moment. Um, I want to be clear, and I know that you and I are in agreement on this, Anna, because we've discussed it. We're not indicating that you'll never work hard, right? We're describing the difference between effort, which is that sustained hard work beyond your limits, and the natural momentum. Look, I used to
Mm,
play baseball, and I loved playing baseball, and if a ball got hit to me, I'm going to run and catch it, and that's going to take a certain degree of effort, but I'm playing, I'm having fun. Same with any game. Same with, believe it or not, some of you may find this hard to believe, but same with everything I've ever done in the past 4 or 5 years related to my business. I work hard, I put in hours, and I enjoy every minute of it. And if I don't, then I
mm,
stop and I do something else. It's not that we don't work hard, it's that you can apply yourself in those directions that matter to you. And you can trust that when you do, something beautiful comes of that, right? You may find, in fact, that you're capable of sustaining hard work, good, productive work for much
mm,
greater lengths of time. Or, as I have found, for shorter stretches of time, generating much more productivity. You may find that you become significantly more efficient and that you have to work hard for shorter periods of time and more comes of it. Like, there's so many different ways this can play out, and it's different for every one of us, and it's different from one moment to the next. But we're not avoiding hard work, we're avoiding work that is not aligned.
yes, that is so very true. And I mean, I can say I'm a hard worker, especially now because I do so much hands-on work for my clients. I mean, that's the most of what I'm doing these days. Um, and I do enjoy it. I think that's the point. If you enjoy it, then there's nothing wrong with it, because then you have that natural momentum. I think what I was referring to earlier was more that sense of forcing something, or just putting in the effort for the sake of putting in the effort, but you're totally disconnected from, the deeper truth of what's right for you, and what's really fulfilling and what brings you joy. So I think that's the distinction here.
Yes. And by the way,
Mm,
I want you to know, Anna, that that is
mm,
exactly what I heard. You were clear in that.
mm,
I wanted to be extra clear for our listeners because I've run into this mental wall many times before. The
mm,
cross armed, it's not possible to get anything done if you don't work. Well, it's not necessary to be miserable while you work. That's the
mm,
thing. It's like, it can be playful, it can be fun, it can be inspiring, it can be self-fulfilling. And if we
mm,
can tap that source, then we can work, we can do real good work, and then the work has
mm.
an impact that is aligned with the heart that it came out of, instead of just being this lifeless thing that was generated as a result of expectation or need, right? I may have quoted this before, so forgive me if it's redundant. I don't think I have with you, Anna, but maybe. I don't know. I get excited about these things, and then I just talk about them all the time. I'm the same way with jokes, by the way. I like to tell the same joke over and over again. Please laugh every time. Rainer Maria Rilke talks about writing poetry, and he's writing a letter to a young poet, and he says that if you must write or else die, then it is good for you to write. But if you're writing for any other reason, if you're writing for publication, if you're writing to be seen or recognized, if you're writing to feel smart, give it up right away. Give it up now. Said if you could do nothing, if you absolutely must write, then you should. And this is the same for all of us. You know, if you wake up and you absolutely must share something on your heart with your audience on social media, it is exactly right for you to do that thing. Just like if you absolutely must eat a bagel, you better go do it. We need to follow that thing that must be done. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just getting a little bit distracted by my cat, but
That's okay.
there are a couple things that came up for me here. So, first of all, I think I'm familiar with that quote that you just shared, but there was something that you said about intention just now as well, but earlier as well, and there was a thought that I had. The intention behind the action, or kind of, I guess, acting with the intention of doing or achieving something very specific, and the effort that's connected to that. So, my journey with this, now again, in connection with business, and I guess with other things as well, but especially with business, has been like using actually a very relaxed space just for the purpose of setting intentions. And then the rest just naturally flows through me. So this past year, I recorded a series of affirmations actually. And I'd received them probably the year before, maybe even, I think back in, was it 2017? I think I channeled the first 10, and then last year, just in one session, they all just kind of came through, and I had this whole list of affirmations.
Wow.
And every time I just felt like this immediate shift, and then I had the idea to just record them, and with music and everything in the background. And so that's a big part of what I did last year, when I first got started on this new journey in my business, and everything just started flowing in a totally different way. And I mean, there has been so much expansion since then, but I totally surrendered the need to figure out the how. And whenever I get into a space where, maybe I'm a little bit stressed about, okay, where's my next client going to come from, which is not even a real issue for me now anymore. But I mean, it was a real issue for a while in the past. And I mean, I definitely went through some struggles until things changed last year. Um, but anyway, the point is, whenever that happens, all I do is I just create space. When I need to, I listen to the affirmations. I hardly ever do anymore. But now it's usually a matter of maybe just a day or two, and then something shows up. But I completely surrender the how. Basically all I do is I come back to this space of relaxation where I can trust that whatever needs to happen will happen. I get to set a very clear intention of what I need, what I want to create, and then I just allow it to materialize in whatever way is best and most aligned, and also, I mean, whatever I want to create in this moment. And it totally works. And then the rest, I mean, is just inspired action, or whatever. I mean, if we want to go into human design terms, I mean, responding to what's happening.
Yes.
And all of that.
Yes.
So that was
I'm glad you mentioned this. Intention. Because you're right. I think we've got ourselves in another semantic tangle here. Intention is another one of those words, right? because especially within the context of manifestation, intention becomes huge. And we hear a lot about intention. And the way that you've just described intention is extremely useful. The question is one of quality. What is the quality of that intention? What is the underlying motivation? Right? And this is the real thing. It's like there are many intentions that tend to come up within the context of manifestation, which are underpinned by a sense of lack. So I intend this thing
Yes.
because I don't have it. Oh, well, I'm going to intend the
Mm-hmm.
yacht. I'm going to imagine the $1 million in my pocket. Okay, that's fine, I guess. But ultimately it's coming from that place of I don't have $1 million in my pocket, and boy, do I wish I had $1 million in my pocket. And so it's beginning with a feeling of poverty, right? Which is misaligned with the intention. But if the intention comes from a pure space, if you decide, it's not even a decision. It's like the decision makes itself. These ideas that come from that pure space, the intention is like, it carries the whole story with it. It's like, oh, I would love to create this thing, and it does this, and it communicates that, and it serves people in this way, and you can see it all. And then it's like the minute you've seen that thing, it's done. You just kind of put it together then, and then like ta-da, and the whole thing on that level is effortless. It takes plenty of work and time and effort and all this to build it. And the whole way along, you're inspired and you're thrilled and you're excited, and then it's done. This is still intention. And then setting intention, beautiful. You're creating a conceptual framework to contain whatever comes next. You're orienting your actions in alignment with your heart. This is all beautiful. But we have to develop a sensitivity that knows to feel into those differences, that knows when I'm intending something because I really wish or because I really should. Yeah. And that's the difference. It's all about that underlying motivation, which brings us back to where we began with this whole thing. Whether it's action, decision making, intention, marketing, or not marketing, building a business, or having a conversation. Look, both of us intended to arrive at this moment and have this conversation. And I can't speak for you, I guess, but I can tell you that the only reason I'm here is because I couldn't wait to be, because I really wanted to be. Because this conversation, this topic is like the most important thing in the world. That's why I'm here. I'm not here for any other reason. I'm here because I want it. That's intention, but it's aligned. Yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, I was so excited about this call, and I always am when we get together for these conversations. I mean, there's no question about that. um, so I'm just wondering, we're almost at an hour with this conversation, and we haven't even really started talking about the hows of developing sensitivity. And it kind of feels like our energy is kind of in a different place today. Like we're all in the excitement of the whys and what we're just sharing today. So I'm wondering if it would make sense to maybe start wrapping up this conversation for today and then come back together for another one. I mean,
All right. Yes.
um,
Happily. And here's the funny thing about that. You and I were doing the thing that we're describing, right? We didn't know how this conversation would go. I can tell you, having seen your questions and your notes, that there was a lot of ground that we haven't even begun to cover that we were excited to cover. Okay.
We had hardly talked about anything that's in our notes for today.
It's crazy, but it's also good business, because think about this. One of the first things you learn when it comes to marketing of any kind is you begin with a hook. And so, everyone listening, you really want to know how to develop sensitivity at this point, don't you? But we didn't sit here and say, let's spend an hour hooking them. No, it's built in. We just get to be excited about the thing that we just want to share with you. And this is how it played out. So those of you who have joined us, I hope that the likelihood is high that you'll rejoin us to learn about the hows. And the reality is, both Anna and myself have tons of tools and resources that we have utilized, proven, at least in our experiences, and that we're excited to share with you, and we will. we ran out of time today. So we'll do it in the next call. And that'll give us all an opportunity to come back after who knows how many weeks or months of contemplation on this theme. And we'll be very ready. It's like we're tilling the soil, and it'll be very ready to plant those seeds that we're excited to share with you. It's perfect, but we couldn't have planned it.
No.
We could have, but I promise it wouldn't have felt the same. This is the final thing I'll say about that. People know when they're being exploited. And when the intention is not pure, that's ultimately what's happening. When you're giving for the pure joy of giving without any expectation of return, it's clean. People want to breathe that air. They know. Whether they know it consciously or not, I'm telling you, like on a genetic, cellular, energetic level, it's unavoidable. People know when it's clean. If it's exploitative or beggarly, people know that too. And they steer clear because people don't want to be hooked. They want to be engaged. That's what we've done today. It's the most natural thing in the world when it's allowed.
Yes. And what you give comes back.
The gift returns to the giver. But you don't need to give for that reason. It's built in. You don't even need to worry about it.
Yes, absolutely. I guess the reason I'm saying is because when you work in this way, with a certain, well, I don't even want to say impure intentions. I mean, for most people, it would just be like the conditioned way of interacting with the world. I mean, there's no conscious intention of manipulating people or, hurting people or whatever. But when we act from this place, then that's also what we receive. And, so the experience of what comes back will not be pleasant for you. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Have you learned that the hard way? Because I have, yeah. Oof. Yeah.
I guess in some ways. I mean, I'd have to think about this one. But I mean, definitely, I've just seen the shift happening in my life very naturally, like in lots of different ways. I guess also, I mean, in business, it's just become such a different, much more enjoyable experience. Also in relationships with other people. I mean, there's so much more I could say about this too, but
amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I want to go there today, but just a totally different quality of interaction with people without, needing any form of manipulation. And I do want to be clear, I'm not talking about, conscious manipulation with maybe some people do that as well, but I mean, there's so much for most of us, just the conditioning, like childhood conditioning, societal conditioning, all of that, because we feel on some level that we can't directly communicate our truth, so we need to find other ways of communicating and even developing that sense of self-honesty within ourselves. I mean, that was in our notes for today. So there's something very liberating about this journey and just really coming to this place where we can fully show up as ourselves in each moment and just not have that agenda. And again, it's so much more efficient, it's more enjoyable, it creates real connection also, which I think is so important, again, in the new way of doing business also.
Ooh, and that's good. I like that.
There's no other intention behind it really than just the pure joy of connection. I mean, I hear this a lot actually online. I mean, there's so many people in my sphere, like coaches, marketers, I mean, all those different kinds of people who do this kind of work for other business owners. And then there's this whole talk about authenticity, vulnerability, connection. And you can see the difference between someone who's really living it and when it's just a concept. And then, okay, it's just a nice idea, but it's not actually working. There's still this intention behind it that's not really coming from a true place within ourselves, but it's just, okay, another marketing trick. That makes sense. and it doesn't work that way. And I guess the way we're doing it now is just something that happens very naturally. And when we don't, it feels so uncomfortable. It's impossible to do. Like for me, I can't do it anymore that way.
No, you know better. And everything inside says, ew, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That self-honesty thing that you mentioned, we may have to come back to it, for a fuller conversation, but it is huge. And it is, I think, a worthy note to make at the tail end of today's conversation, which is that what we're describing here, it is beautiful and expansive and it changes everything, but it does require a certain degree of courage for you to look inside and to get honest about what you see. I can tell you that it's never comfortable for me to get halfway into a project only to realize that the initial intention was sour. That there was something other than pure joy generating that action. But what are the alternatives? To continue to try and bulldoze in that direction, or to take a deep breath and return myself to what is in fact wanting to happen in that moment, even if it has nothing to do with that halfway completed project, right? It requires honesty. You're smiling in that big way that tells me that you've been there and you have something to share.
Well, it just brings me back to this whole topic of why waiting is important,
Yeah.
So, I mean, usually nowadays I catch myself before it happens because I've learned to wait until I'm ready and not just acting on an idea when, sometimes it feels inspired and I can feel it so physically in my body and I just know now is the right time to act. But sometimes it's just an idea and, okay, feeling into, is this ready? And often I feel, okay, maybe not yet. I need to wait a little bit and feel into it more. And then maybe some more pieces will come in the meantime. And then at some point it is ready. So, I mean, I guess that's what happened with this conversation too. We originally wanted to meet up way sooner for this second part, but I mean, it's been more than a month now again, but it's perfect. It's the perfect time as always.
Yes. Okay. So this conversation, I believe, to be beautiful in that it demonstrates what we're talking about. If you can't tell by watching this, that we're both totally surprised by what happened today. We are, and thank goodness, right? It's just perfect. So here's what I would love. I would love to invite anyone listening to ask questions. And Dan, I hope you don't mind me just kind of putting that out there. I don't care if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube. Share your questions. Reach out to us personally, put a comment, whatever. Your questions will generate more, and they'll personalize what we're dealing with here. It's very important to both Anna and myself that these ideas come down into life, that they don't get stuck in the conceptual realm. I don't want you to get all excited about how successful Tim is at doing this stuff. I want you to experience it for yourself. I want to get creative and figure out how we can touch the everyday, ordinary activity of your experience in a way that transforms it in a similar fashion. I say similar fashion because it'll look totally different for you, but you get to feel this too. Yeah, so be involved, ask your questions, share your observations. We're learning. We just happen to be doing it in front of a camera.
Yes, we always love questions. I always love questions for sure. So thank you for bringing this up. And I guess the very last piece, I'm actually really excited to share this. I wanted to mention this earlier, but then I forgot. The affirmations that I mentioned, I actually recently put these on my website as a product that you can get there. And right now they're at an introductory price. And I can tell you they are so, so, so effective for me at least. So, and I've heard the same from clients who have worked with them too. So if you're excited about trying those out, you can find them on my website, annafrolik.com. And there's a short sample that you can listen to also. And now, is there anything that you would like to share, Tim, before we end this conversation?
Well, yeah, first of all, congratulations.
Mm.
That's super exciting. Um, I want to tell anyone listening, like, go get them, but I don't think they need me to convince them of how amazing you and your work, you are and your work is. So
Well,
there's
you
that.
haven't listened to them, I guess.
Oh my goodness. I know the person who created them, and I would love to listen to them. Let's talk about that as well. Okay. Um, and then what I'll share from my part is, I'm glad for this opportunity. Normally I wouldn't say anything, but in this case, I have been so enjoying working with people like us who are seeking to do things differently and maybe struggling to identify how. So though so much of my work has been primarily focused in the directions of human design and the gene keys and my new body keys system, I've also been dedicating a certain degree of attention to business consulting. And so if what we've discussed today is like super inspiring to you, then connect with me. Maybe we'll meet for a mirror session. We can see how that goes and take it from there. I'm open to working in this way with those few people who are ready. So there's nothing you're going to find on my website or Facebook or anything about this. You're going to have to reach out to me personally, but I'm just stating to you and the universe that it's time to start changing the way we're doing things one person at a time. And I think it's really relevant. So I'm excited about all of this. I'm excited for the next conversation already.
Me too.
Yeah. And Anna, thank you. Thank you for hosting yet another just like super exciting conversation.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for sharing this new piece that you're offering. I didn't even really know this, but sounds super, super exciting. And so thank you for sharing this. And I would definitely encourage anybody who feels excited about this to reach out to Tim. And you can find, well, I guess you can be found on Facebook and your website,
Yep.
timothybrainard.com.
That's right.
And I think this is it for today. So thank you so much again, Tim, for this really surprising and also very inspiring and insightful conversation today. And my cat is going crazy. I'm so sorry.
She knows it's time.
Like she's about to knock down my lamp over there. I don't know what she's doing. Anyway, I guess there's no question. We will be back for another conversation, hopefully soon. I would say probably in the new year sometime, but hopefully sooner rather than later. And for now, I hope you enjoy this conversation. Again, leave questions and any feedback that you would like to share with us. And we can't wait to hear from you, and we can't wait to be back again soon.
See you soon.